Amen. And hey, by the way, if this is not just your first time at Thrive Church, but your first time in a church, maybe never been to church before, we hope you find that Thrive is a safe place for you. Turn to your neighbor and say, this is a safe place. And we hope you know whenever you come here to Thrive that whoever you are, wherever you come from, no matter what your background, you are loved, loved, loved by an amazing God. And we're so glad that you're here to join us today. And it's with that in mind that if you have any questions, if there's any way we can be praying for you, then you can always email us at info@thrivechurch.ca. We love hearing from you. Well, I thought I'd begin today's message by asking you a would you rather question. All right? I have a lot of would you rather experience because I have 2 young boys and they always ask me would you rather questions. So I thought I'd share the wealth by asking you this question. I'm going to show you a picture of a duck and let me ask you this question. Would you rather have a duck as a pet or a duck as a meal? All right? And so before you say your answer, all right, before you say your answer, by show of claps and shouts, if you would rather have a duck as a pet, can I hear from you right now on count of 3? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have a very passionate pocket of people who really love ducks as pets. Okay, I think I know what's going to come up, but let me just ask anyways. Is that if you prefer to have a duck not as a pet, but as a meal, can I hear from you on count of 1, 2, 3? I was someone expecting that. Okay, excellent. That's great. Well, here, let me tell you, once my dad and my grandfather, they were at a park, and they were sitting on a bench, and there was this duck that was waddling on the grass kind of toward them. And it just so happened that there was another father-son pair near them, much younger father, much younger son, like, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. And they see this duck as well. And the little boy says to his father, "Oh, Dad, look at the duck. He's so cute. Can we take him home? Can he be my pet?" And while this conversation is going on, my grandfather, who's sitting on the bench, he has no idea what they're saying. I don't think he even understands what they're saying. And he nudges my dad on the bench, and he says something completely different. He's like, "What do you say, son, if we take that duck and we cook it tonight?" He was new to Canada. And see, here's the thing. For one father and son pair, that duck was a potential pet. For another father and son pair, that duck was a potential meal. 2 different visions about one duck. Why do I mention that today? It's because we're doing a series here at Thrive. It's called Jesus Vision. Everyone say Jesus Vision. And we're talking in Jesus' vision about the importance of your vision. Not just your eyesight physically, but even more importantly, your spiritual eyesight, your vision for life. How do you see life? How do you see death? How do you see the world around you? How do you look at your circumstances? How do you interpret challenges that you're facing? How do you look at God? How do you look at the world? This is your vision. And see, Jesus says that if your vision is good, if it's healthy, if it's focused, if it's clear, then your spiritual vision is going to affect your life in a lot of positive ways. It's going to affect the decisions you make. It's going to affect the directions you take. It's going to affect the impact that you have. It's going to affect, the kind of relationships and the health of those relationships that you have. But if your spiritual vision is unhealthy, if it's not focused, if it's not clear, then you're going to find that vision or lack thereof affects the rest of your life as well. And you'll find yourself sometimes stumbling and fumbling a lot more than you'd like to. In other words, your vision both reflects and affects the rest of your life. Or put another way, is that how you see determines how you live. Turn to your neighbor and say, how you see determines how you live. That's the importance of your vision. And because vision is so important, that's what we're talking about, is how you see. And here's the thing. A lot of you here, the reason why you're here is because you're interested in following Jesus. And let me tell you this today, and I said it last week, I said it the week before, because it's so important, is that before you can do as Jesus does, you need to see as Jesus sees. And that's why in this series called Jesus Vision, we're looking at how Jesus sees a whole bunch of different topics that are relevant to your life. How Jesus sees your life. How does Jesus see death? Last week we talked about how does Jesus see priorities. A couple weeks before that, we looked at how does Jesus see even his own followers. And today, we're going to look at another topic that's relevant to all of us, which is how does Jesus see time? Now, I want to ask all of us to read scripture together, and we did this last week. I thought that really went really well. I want to ask you to do it one more time. Would you all stand to your feet right now? And we're going to read some scripture out loud together. I'm even ask one of our musicians to come up and play some background music for us, because I always find that helps as well. And I'm just going to ask you all to read Luke chapter 12, 35 to 48 together. Would you read this in a big, loud voice together right now? We're going to say this. We're going to say, "Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning, like men waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. I tell you the truth, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the second or third watch of the night. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Peter asked, Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone? The Lord answered, who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. I tell you the truth, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose the servant says to himself, my master is taking a long time in coming. And he then begins to beat the men servants and maidservants and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, at an hour he's not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. That servant who knows his master's will and does not get ready or does not do what his master wants will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who's been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who's been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. Today we're talking about how Jesus sees time. And this message I'm here to share with you is called God on Time. We're talking today about the time management principles of Jesus. And so as you're taking your seats right now, would you give your neighbors in front of you, behind you, give them a high five and say, God is always on time. God is always on time. Please have your seats. Let me begin by asking you this question. Because today we're going to get really practical about time and time management. And if you are someone who struggles in that area, I think this message is going to be particularly helpful for you. But let me begin with this big question, which is this. How does God see time? How does God see time? You know, there's a branch of philosophy that is discussed in universities all over the world that focuses on this one question, which is, if God is eternal, if God is everlasting, then what is God's relationship to time? To put it as simply as I can, if time is a toy car like this, is God in the car with us, moving along as we go, and he was in the car before we were in the car, and he'll always be in the car? Or is God outside of the car, and he's standing at a distance, standing outside of time, looking at us from there? Is he what some people call omnitemporal, always there at every point in time, or is he timeless? He's standing outside of time. See, philosophers talk about these kind of questions, and if you want to explore that question, you can talk to me about this after today. You can email us at info@church.ca. But why do I mention any of that today? It's because if Christians believe something that is true, or if what Christians believe is true, which is that Jesus is both fully God and fully man, that means that Jesus is eternal. That Jesus is the eternal Son of God, together with the Father and the Holy Spirit, that he has existed before anything else has existed, that Jesus is eternal. And if Jesus is eternal, that means that Jesus has a perspective on time that you and I do not have, because we're not eternal that way. But it also means this: if Jesus is fully God and fully man, that means that there was a point in time when Jesus stepped into our world. It's called the incarnation. When Jesus puts on human flesh and he begins to experience time the way that we experience time. I don't know if you get older in heaven, but you know, Jesus, he's now getting older in a way that maybe he didn't experience in heaven. And he's experiencing time in a way that we now experience it. And now it's cool that how the one who invented time is now with us and showing us how to use time, or how he uses time in real time. That's the mystery of the incarnation. Jesus coming here, the eternal Son of God, born in human flesh, living among us. And see, today we're focused on how Jesus saw time and how he saw time when he was living on this earth. And we're going to talk about how did Jesus manage his time, because no one was busier than Jesus, and yet no one managed his time better than heated as well. And so if you're here and you're thinking to myself, man, like I don't have enough time to do everything that I want to do in a day, well, this message is for you. If you find that, man, I'm so busy, I've got so many demands on me, and there's just so much stuff that I need to do, and I often find that I'm just really stretched for time, and what do I do about that? Well, this message is going to be, I think, helpful for you today. Let's look at Luke chapter 12, verse 42 and 43. Read it with me in loud voice. What does it say? It says, "The Lord answered, 'Who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns.'" If you have your Bibles, would you look at verse 42 one more time? And I want you to get ready to underline something. It says this, "The Lord answered, 'Who then is the faithful and wise manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants?'" And here you go, underline, "to give them their food at the proper time." See, what's the lesson here? Is that part of good, effective time management is knowing, quote, what time it is and doing things at the, quote, proper time. And when I say knowing what time it is, I don't mean you need a watch and it's just about knowing how to tell time that way, but I mean something deeper than that. Let me give you an example. See, one of the things that you guys maybe don't get to experience that I get to experience every Sunday is this, is I'm backstage, and as the services are about to begin, we have our worship band, they're getting ready on the stage, and usually the worship leader will be one of the last to get up on the stage before the service begins, because they're waiting for the right time. They're waiting for their cue. They're waiting for that moment in the video when it's about time to get up. We're telling you some of the secrets to how we do service here. And here's the thing, is that they're waiting for that perfect right moment. And why do I mention that? It's because when you look at how Jesus lived his life on earth, Jesus wouldn't just do things whenever he felt like doing things. But Jesus had this acute sensitivity about when was the right time to do certain things. It was almost like he was following a script, and he was waiting on the cue of a director to tell him what to do before he would move forward. So for example, in what is famously known as Jesus' very first miracle, Jesus at a wedding turns water into wine. And what happens is his mother, he notices that the host has run out of wine, and it's kind of an embarrassing thing for them. She feels bad. So she goes to her adult son, Jesus, and she nudges him a bit and says, "They have no more wine." In other words, Jesus, do something. Do something, Jesus. And see, Jesus responds to his mom this way in John 2:4. Read it with me. It says, "Dear woman, why do you involve me? My time has not yet come." Now, I know we want to all be like Jesus. Now, here's the thing. If later on today your loved one, your spouse says, "Hey, honey, could you please take out the garbage?" I want you to think twice before you say, "Dear woman, why do you involve me? My time has not yet come." Or say your boss gives you an assignment just as you're working on another one. They say, "Can you please do this? Please hurry up." Please don't say, or think twice before you say, "Dear woman, why do you involve me? My time has not yet come." See, I want you to think twice about that, especially if that person isn't a woman. You want to just be careful. And here's the thing, is that you want to be careful. Why does Jesus say what he's saying? There's a sermon just in this verse on its own. But let me just tell you one reason why Jesus says what he says. Jesus is waiting for the right time. He's waiting for the right moment to act, and he would act, but not at that moment, because it wasn't the right time. My time has not yet come. Look at John chapter 7, verse 3. What does it say? Read it with me. It says, "Jesus' brothers said to him, 'You ought to leave here and go to Judea, so that your disciples may see the miracles you do. No one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. Since you are doing these things, show yourself to the world.' For even his own brothers did not believe in him. Therefore, Jesus told them, 'The right time for me has not yet come. For you, any time is right.'" Then drop down to verse 8. It says, "You go to the feast. I'm not yet going up to this feast, because for me, the right time has not yet come." See, notice this. Jesus, in different situations, had this very acute sense of what the right timing was. He wouldn't just do things whenever he felt like doing them, but he would wait for what is the right time. And he wouldn't do things unless he was confident that it was the right time to do it. And that's why he would say stuff like, "You know what? My time has not yet come, so I'm not going to the Feast of Tabernacles yet." But see, when Jesus knew it was the right time, he would move forward with purpose, with confidence, with courage. That's why he would say to his disciples in another case, he's like, "What are you guys waiting for? The time is now. Don't say 4 more months and then the harvest. Look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. go and reach people in my name. And so when he knew it was the right time, he would move forward with courage and purpose, because that was Jesus' approach to time. He was laser focused on doing things at the right and proper time. And it reminds me of this verse in Ecclesiastes. I don't know if you've ever read or focused on this verse before, but we're going to look at it right now. Ecclesiastes 8:5-6 says this. Read it with me. It says, whoever obeys his command will come to no harm, and the wise heart will know the proper time and procedure. For there is a proper time and procedure for every matter. Stop right there. Ecclesiastes says the wise heart will know the proper time and procedure. That for some reason, for every matter, there's a proper time to do it. There's a proper procedure for doing it. That's what a wise heart believes. There's a right way, a good way, a best way to go about things. We want to do that. And see, according to Jesus, part of being a good time manager is knowing what that time is and doing things at the proper time. So here's a question for you. How do you know when is the proper time? How do you know when to do what? For example, here's a question that a friend of mine shared. And this person wrote, my current job keeps me very, very busy, and I'm constantly on overtime. At times, my spouse and kids would complain about not having enough of me. And also, by the end of the day, sometimes when I pick up my Bible, my eyes are already closing. Also, I'm a person who needs a lot of sleep. What should I do? Now, this friend is basically asking, what can I possibly do to manage my time better when I've got all these demands on me? When I've got all these different people pulling for my attention, and it feels like I don't have enough time and energy for everything I need to do in a day. Do you ever feel like that? Is that your experience every day or often? Well, this message is for you. I hope that as we look today at 4 time management principles from Jesus, that you're going to find something in here that's going to help you. And I want to encourage you to write these down as well. We're going to look at 4 ways that Jesus managed time. And I hope that you'll take these to heart, learn to see how Jesus sees time, and hopefully it'll affect the way that you manage time as well. 4 time management principles from Jesus. Write the first one down. It's cut unnecessary weight. Cut unnecessary weight. Or an older way of saying it would be gird your loins. Turn to your neighbor and say, gird your loins. All right, well, what does that mean? Let's get into it right now. Talking about cut unnecessary weight. Look at Luke chapter 12, verse 35 with me right now. What does it say? Read it with me in a loud voice. It says, be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning, like men waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. Go back to verse 35. It says, be dressed, ready for service. In older translations of the Bible, be dressed, ready for service is translated, gird your loins. Now, what does that mean exactly, to gird your loins? See, back in Jesus' day, back in ancient Near East, people wore long flowing robes. And as beautiful as those long flowing robes may have been, it was hard to move in those robes quickly. It's like you've got all this material around you that's basically slowing you down. And so when it was time to run, when it was time to serve, when it was time to do manual labor, when it was time to fight, people would gird their loins. Men would gird their loins. They would lift their robe above their knees and tie it so that they have now more mobility. And people apparently still do this to this day, such that there's an online men's magazine called The Art of Manliness. I don't subscribe to that one, but maybe I should. And on May 9, 2023, The Art of Manliness online men's magazine, they talked about their skill of the week. And their skill of the week, surprisingly, was how to gird your loins. So I guess they're reaching people, not just in North America, but maybe other places as well, or maybe people in North America too. But here it is there's a little step-by-step graphic on how you gird your loins. And as you go through, it's like, okay, they're pulling them up a little bit above the knee, they're tying it together. And I thought to myself, you know what? Rather than just showing you in pictures, I thought we'd show this to you in person, what that looks like. And so with that in mind, I'm going to invite a volunteer right now. His name is Justin. Could you give Justin a big hand? Would you give that for Justin, please? All right. Well, Justin, he normally plays bass with our band All for One Name Worship, but he's dressed up today as someone from Jesus' time. All right. Doesn't he look great? Looks good. Now here's the thing is, I don't know if the shoes are, from maybe Air Jordan Rivers, maybe, I don't know. But here it is we're going to show you what it looks like to gird your loins. I know Justin's been practicing this a little bit, right? Okay. All right. So maybe tell us, based on your extensive practice, learning how to gird your loins, what does that look like? Do you want to show it?
So I couldn't get it the same as how the manly one does it, just because of the fabric. But you hike up your loins, and then for me, I just end up bunching it up on the side here, and then using part of my robe to keep that up and out of the way. And I take the other part of the robe, if I can find it, and quickly just tie it up. And we have gird up loins.
All right, look at that. Okay, do you see that? Everyone, you can see that? All right, so now look at that. He's ready to fight. He's ready to dance. He's ready to run. He's ready to serve. Give it up for Justin right now. That's fantastic. Way to go. Way to go. And we'll be selling these robes. Oh, I'm kidding. We're not selling this. Yeah. So here we go. What are they doing when they're girding their loins? They're removing excess material that's getting in the way. And by the way, maybe I just thought I should mention this. Because we don't use the term gird your loins anymore, just be a little careful how you say the term. When I asked the staff earlier this week about, hey, should we demonstrate how to gird your loins on stage? They're really excited about it. And one of our staff, they said, oh yeah, I would love to see the guy demonstrate their loins. Okay. But loins is not the clothing, it's the body part that covers or is covered by the clothing. So you don't want to say when someone asks you later on at church, oh, what'd you learn at church today? Don't tell them, oh, someone showed me their loins, because that's another kind of thing. But you want to say that we learned how to gird your loins, okay? All right, so just in case there's any confusion on how to say it. So here it is. What do we mean by gird your loins? See, effectively, gird your loins means get rid of all the excess weight that's slowing you down and that makes you less effective. Let me ask you this question. Is there excess weight in your life that is slowing you down and keeping you from being effective? Like when you look at how you spend a typical day, are you using your time as efficiently as you can? Or is there extra stuff that's kind of getting in the way that you're carrying and it's slowing you down? See, last week we talked about priorities and how Jesus sees priorities. Talked about how when we seek God's kingdom first, he adds what? He adds everything we need. So we want to be people who seek God's kingdom first for God's glory. And here's the question for you is that when I am, going about my day, ask yourself, am I allowing something that's less important to take time away from something more important? See, we're talking about girding your loins. Is there any excess material that's getting in the way? Hebrews 12:1 puts it this way. Read it with me in a loud voice. It says, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. It says, let us strip off every weight that slows us down. Now, every weight isn't just sin in your life where you're doing the wrong thing. It's not just that. Weights can actually be good things in your life, but they're not the best thing. And they slow you down from doing the things that God made you to do. And see, the fact is this, you cannot be everywhere all the time. And you cannot be everything to everyone. And so you need to sometimes make some tough choices about what you're going to cut from your life. How do you do that? Well, let me tell you 3 things that you can consider cutting from your life. Cut weight first by identifying the time wasters in your life and eliminating them. What are the time wasters that take up unnecessarily time in your life? When we first planted Thrive Church, several years ago, I was working as both a pastor and a lawyer, and I thought to myself, I'll just do my best to do both. I'm not going to put limits on either one. And, I'm just going to see how things go. And as things progress, as the church continued to grow, I realized something, which is that now I didn't have enough time to do everything that I was trying to do. And something eventually had to give. I realized that one of the biggest drains for me, one of the kind of more draining situations that I would encounter, both time-wise and energy-wise, is when I would agree to take on a certain kind of file, a certain kind of business deal that I would agree to take on. And it would just demand so much time and energy from me. It would take me way too long away from my home. It made trying to leave the church a little more stressful. And I had to cut that weight. I had to tell the office, you know what? I don't think I can take on this kind of case anymore. What am I doing? Is I'm cutting away something less important to make room for something more important. It's not that that thing I was cutting off is bad. It's just not what's best. And it's what we want to do is we want to gird our loins, so to speak, by removing the weights that hold us back from doing what God most importantly wants us to do. And especially if you are someone with a lot of roles. If you're someone with a lot of responsibilities and demands on your time, you cannot afford to waste your time. You can't. And so here's a question for you. What is a time waster in your life? Is there something less important that tends to creep into your life and take over room from stuff that's more important? Is there something good that's keeping you from what's best? What adjustment do you need to make to give yourself the time that you need to do the most important things? That's the first one, is identify those time wasters and eliminate them. The second thing you can consider cutting is cut weight by saying no to unnecessary distractions. Cut weight by saying no to unnecessary distractions. When I was studying at UBC, I would go to a library on campus called Main Library. And I'm not even sure if Main Library even exists anymore. Like UBC students, does Main Library actually exist anymore? Maybe not, because it's a super old library. And I don't blame people for saying it doesn't exist anymore, because what? It's a scary building. It's a scary old building. People called it, back in my day, they called it the X-Files building, because it was just very creepy to go in there. And guess where I love to study? I love to study in there. Do you know why? No distractions. No one else would go there. Everyone was going to Kerner Library, and they'd eventually go to Irvine if that was there. But I would go to Main Library because I cannot work with distractions. Is there anyone here who's easily distracted? Oh, I'm so easily distracted. When I work, I cannot have any distractions. Anyone like to work with music in the background? Anyone? Okay, if that's you, we cannot sit beside each other when we're working, all right? Because I cannot have music in the background. There's enough music going on in here that I just cannot have other music going on. And so what I find is I need absolute silence when I'm working. And that's why, because I'm so easily distracted. And because I'm so easily distracted, I find that I'll do certain things to help me get rid of certain distractions. And so I'll disable all the pop-up banners in my computer. I'll turn off notifications from certain apps on my phone. I'll place my phone face down when I'm working so that if it rings or it vibrates, I'm not like tempted to go look in. I'll just kind of leave it there, because I know the moment I look at my phone, I'll be distracted, I'll be thinking about this, and I'll be forgetting what I'm doing, and I'm just wasting time going back and forth. Sometimes if there's a lot of people in one room, I'll go to another room because I just need to really focus. What am I doing? I'm cutting weight because I can't afford to be distracted. In a similar way, I'm here to tell you, if you want to be an effective time manager, you need to have a zero distraction tolerance. Is that you should be like, you know what? I'm not going to let anything else get in the way, and I'm not going to let myself get caught up in activities that take me off of my priorities, what's most important. I'm not going to get into conversations that are going to lead nowhere. I'm not going to, just be, just aimlessly, endlessly scrolling on my phone, as a distraction. No, I'm going to be as focused as I can be, because the time you waste on that, you lose for the more important things. And so we want to be people who learn to cut out the unnecessary distraction. Here's a third area that we can consider cutting. Cut weight by delegating and empowering others. Jesus was the master of this. Instead of doing everything himself, he entrusted others, in particular his followers, his team. He gave them authority to do those things too. And in so doing, guess what? He multiplied his impact. See, sometimes people that ask me, how do you manage a family, a church, a business, all that stuff at the same time? And I tell them, I have an amazing team on every side. And I could not do anything without them. Similarly, you don't have to do everything yourself. In fact, you shouldn't. You want to decide beforehand, what is stuff that I can entrust to others to do so I can focus on the things that only I should be doing. Tell your neighbor today, you need to gird your loins. You need to gird your loins. That sounds a bit like a heavy metal song, doesn't it? Gird your loins, gird your loins. Da, 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 da. Maybe All for One Name Worship, its next single will be Gird Your Loins. I'm kidding. Maybe not. But that's the first thing. Gird your loins. Cut unnecessary weight. Point number 2, time management principle number 2 from Jesus is number 2, plan ahead how you will use both your time and your energy. See, let's look at what Jesus says about a poor time manager. Look at Luke chapter 12, verse 45. What does it say? It says, "But suppose the servant says to himself, 'My master is taking a long time in coming.' And then he begins to beat the men servants and maid servants and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he's not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers." Look at verse 45 again. It says, "But suppose the servant says to himself, 'My master is taking a long time in coming.'" What's the lesson here? One of the lessons we can learn is this, is a poor manager of time often underestimates how much time they need to get something done. For example, how much time you need to get from one place to another, how much time you need to finish that project. This is that due to a poor appreciation of time, they just can't plan well. And has that ever happened to you before? You don't really think through how much time you need to get to that place. You didn't really think through how much time you needed to do that work. And so you end up running late, and you end up even breaking a promise in addition to maybe a deadline. See, has that ever happened to you before? Here's the thing. To plan ahead and to manage time well, you need a system. Turn to your saying, you need a system. There was this one study recently that found that 92% of people who make a New Year's resolution fail at fulfilling that New Year's resolution. 92%. So out of 100 people, 92 people will not make it and not fulfill their New Year's resolution. Why? Because the biggest reason is this. They had good intentions, but they didn't have a good system. As James Clear, he's the author of Atomic Habits, he would say this, is that you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And see, you could have the most inspiring dream. You could have the most motivating goal. But if you do not have a system to get you there, that dream or that goal is just going to remain a dream or a goal and nothing else. What's your system for managing time? Well, I'm going to share with you a little bit of my time management system. And the thing is this, the fact is, we said this last week, every person's unique. Every person's shape is different. You are not a cookie cutter version of something that God created, but you are a unique masterpiece of God. Turn to your neighbor and say, you're looking at a masterpiece. I'm looking at unique masterpieces all over the place. And so in sharing with you how I try to manage time, I'm not saying this is exactly the way that you should do it, because you got to look at your shape, your season, your situation. But hopefully by just sharing a little bit with you about this, it'll challenge you to think, how can I effectively manage my time even more than I do right now? So here are some things that I do to try to manage my time. See, every day I should have brought it up with me, but I didn't. I have what's called a game booklet. And the game stands for our God and me experience time. And in that, you've got like scriptures that you can read every day, some questions you can ask yourself. But I don't just use it for that. I actually use my game booklet as a daily planner for myself. And every day, what I'll do is to start off the next day at night, I will draw a cross. I don't know why I do this, but I draw a cross to remind myself I'm going to seek God's kingdom first. And then I'll write down everything that I think I need to do tomorrow or that I want to do tomorrow. And then I'll ask myself, how much time do I need for every single one of these things? And I might prioritize and go, this is more important than this. But I'll ask myself, realistically, how much time do I need? And I'll give myself a little bit of a buffer. What if traffic is bad? Or, what if I have to go to the washroom or something? And I'll just try to figure it out. How much time roughly do I need? And then I'll now have a bit of a rundown for the day. I'll know, okay, where I'm going from point to point and hour by hour during the day. And what I'll do is I've got a pretty regimented routine that I follow every day, every week. It's not down to the minute, but what I'll do is I'll block out certain hours of the day for certain things. When I work on a message, when I work on other church stuff, when I work on other work, when do I spend time with the family, when do I exercise, when do I eat lunch, when do I read and send text messages or emails, when do I date Pastor Charlene? It's all kind of there. It's all kind of in a schedule. It's all in my mind. It's all in a planner. And there's flexibility there in case I need to adjust. But blocking out that time helps me know what each hour of the day is for. And see, I find this that a good time management system isn't just about how well you plan at the beginning, It's about how well you remind yourself throughout the week. Is that you might have the best plan, but if you're forgetting it or you don't see it, it doesn't matter how well you plan. And so I find that the reminders that I give myself are just important. So for example, the moment I say yes to something, I say yes to a meeting, I say yes to, getting something for the family, whatever it is, I will write that down right away. Otherwise, I'm going to forget it. And I cannot afford to forget. I cannot afford to break a promise. And so for some things, I'll even write it twice. I'll have two places where I'll write it. I'll set alarms on my phone, something that you probably do as well. If there's like a physical thing that I need to bring somewhere from home, so that, because I'm so forgetful, what I'll do is I'll place this thing that I need to bring home, I'll place it at my shoes. Or I'll place it in the driver's seat of my car. Or I'll place it at the door that I'm going to go through. So just in case I completely forget, it's there right in front of me. Like, oh, yes, my lunch. And see, this is how I kind of remind myself. And why do I do that? Why do I do that? It's because the biggest difference between a responsible person and an irresponsible person is this, is the irresponsible person overestimates how good their memory is. They overestimate how good their memory is. And see, you don't just want to plan your time, though. You want to plan how you use your energy. See, I know about you, but I find this. I find that I can be faster or slower at certain tasks just depending on what time of the day that I do it. Do you find that too? Is that for me, I find I'm a little faster in the morning. I'm a bit fresher in the morning, and I'm a little slower in the afternoon. That's why we don't have afternoon services here. I'm kidding. But the thing is when it comes to work, that requires the best of me mentally. Like I'm preparing a message, or I'm writing an important letter, or something like that. Is that I will schedule that when I'm freshest. I'll schedule that in the morning, because in the morning, that's when I've got the best of my energy to use. I don't want to start that really heavy piece of work in the afternoon when I've used up my best energy already and my food is digesting and I'm slower than usual. I'm just going to waste time. And then in the afternoon, what I'll do is I'll often schedule meetings in the afternoon, because being with people, it energizes me. Being with people, it forces me almost to keep my energy up. What am I doing? I'm planning my day, not just based on how I use my time. I'm planning my day based on how I use my energy. And stuff that requires my best energy, I'll do when I've got my best energy. And stuff that doesn't require my best energy, I'll do when I've got less energy. I'll run simpler errands, when I've got less energy. And see, if you don't know how to plan your energy, guess what's going to happen? You're going to find yourself doing stuff that should only take you 10 minutes, but it takes you 45 minutes to do it. Because you're doing it at a time when your energy isn't appropriate to the task. You want to plan your energy as well. Turn to him and say, plan your energy. Psalm 90 verse 12 says it this way. Read it with me. It says, teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. I love this verse. It's saying, God, give us wisdom to use our time and our energy well. Because when you use your time and energy well, guess what happens? You gain more wisdom. It takes wisdom to know how to manage your time and energy well. But when you manage your time and energy well, guess what happens? You gain more wisdom. God wants to give you wisdom upon wisdom. That's what Psalm 90 is talking about. Now, you might be, well, JB, I really do try to plan. I try hard to plan every day. But guess what? My spouse is not a planner. Oh, it's so hard dealing with that person. Well, guess what? If that's you, we're going to talk a little bit about that later on in February, talking about what do you do about interruptions to your plans. What do you do about that? Stay tuned for that later on in February. But that's second time management principle from Jesus, is you want to plan ahead how to use your time and energy. Number 3, value self-care. Value self-care. One reason why Jesus was such an effective manager of his time is because he would actually go out of his way to rest and to recharge in different ways. For example, look at Luke chapter 8, verse 22. Read it with me. It says, one day, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross to the other side of the lake. So they got into a boat and started out. And as they sailed across, Jesus settled down for a nap. Jesus napped. Look at Luke chapter 5, verse 16. It says, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Now, that one you probably would expect a little more. But see, whether it's taking a nap or spending a time alone with the Father, Jesus took the time to care for himself physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, so that he could keep being at his best. I don't know if you're a big fan of him or not, but whether you're a big fan of him or not, LeBron James, I think he's one of the greatest basketball players to ever play the game. And LeBron James, he has been a pro basketball player, amazing player for the past 21 years. And he is someone who started in 2003, his rookie year. In fact, that's a picture of him in his rookie year. He's still playing 21 years later. He's the oldest person in the league now. And he's still playing at a very high level. And my question for you is, how did he last this long? This does not happen. This doesn't happen. People don't last this long. Why does LeBron James last that long? Let me tell you why. It's not just because he's talented. It's not just because he's naturally just very athletic. It's not even because he's just naturally healthy. It's because he takes very, very good care of himself. And see, if you want to last in ministry, or last in your career, or last in your calling, or last in the things that God has called you to do, you need to take care of yourself. Recently there's a friend of mine who asked me this question. She asked, where do you draw the line between self-discipline and self-care? Which one do you prioritize? Self-care, self-discipline. Which one's more important? And my answer is this. It's not to me either or. It's not, there's self-care on this side, there's self-discipline on this side, and they never meet. In fact, I would say it to you this way, is that self-care is a part of self-discipline. And self-discipline is a part of self-care. It's almost like two circles that intersect each other. It's that these two things, you need both of them. You need self-discipline, and you also need self-care. And in the context of time management, let me put it to you this way. Effective time management and effective self-care go together. You might so want to manage your time well. You might be such a good planner. You might cut out so much stuff that you don't need from your life. But if you're not taking good care of your heart, if you're not taking good care of your body, if you're not taking good care of your mind, then guess what? You will not be nearly as effective as God made you to be. I love being productive. It gives me this satisfaction almost in a sick way where I just love to have a list of stuff to do and go bam, 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 bam. I like to get things done. And sometimes in the past, I'd actually go overboard with that. Is that, throughout the day, I've got this list of stuff to do, and I just boom, 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 boom. I'm just like going through this, and I'm working nonstop all throughout the day. I'm eating lunch on the go in the car. I'm working into the night. I would try to squeeze everything that I could possibly do all into one day, and then I go to bed, I don't sleep well, and guess what happens? The next day, I would be wiped out. Physically wiped out. Mentally spent, emotionally empty. And so what happened? All of my super hard work on day one came at the cost of a very ineffective day two. Has that happened to you before? And see, here's the thing. Since then, I've learned to work smarter. Is that rather than trying to be like this machine that speeds through the day with one thing after another without any kind of stopping, I will schedule breaks for myself during the day. For example, might write a game sharing for all of you. And as I'm sending it out, I'll go and I'll walk around the room. I might talk to someone and just kind of refresh myself that way, rest my eyes a little bit. I might be spending a whole chunk of time getting a message ready. And then you know what? I'll take a break for myself. I might go to the gym and I'll work out a little bit. I'll have lunch. And I find this is that I've learned this about myself, is that it's hard for me to enjoy lunch when I'm reading something on my phone. So I can't do that anymore. Is that, I want to rest my eyes and focus on my lunch and enjoy the colors on my lunch or whatever you want to do. I want to enjoy that so that I can really focus and really recharge rather than just being distracted that way. And then I'll work hard during the day, but at the end of the day, I'll go home and as much as possible, I'll try to rest. And I'll let myself sleep at a reasonable hour, or at least try to. One more thing I try to do nowadays is rather than squeezing everything I possibly can out of one day, I'm learning to leave what I can for the next day. That not as a form of procrastination, but as a form of self-discipline, as a form of self-care. And instead of trying to think about something and decide on a big question at the end of the day when I've got very little left, is I'll consider moving it to the next day when I can see it with fresh eyes. See, these are different ways that I'm trying to take a bit better care of myself because I want to last a long time. I will pray the same for you. See, here's the thing. What are we doing? We're doing things with the eye for self-care. I find this, is that every day when I do things at this slower pace, I find that any given time, any given day, I'm maybe a little slower than I used to be, but over the course of a week, I'm more effective. And over the course of a week, I actually get more done, and I'm happier through the process. I find it this way. I don't know if you'd agree with me. Better to work at 80% speed with a peaceful heart than 100% speed with a frantic heart. I believe that now. And so you remember that life is not a daily sprint. It's a marathon that lasts decades, so you want to run it accordingly. Final time management principle from Jesus. Number 4, live with purpose and believe that God's grace is sufficient for you every day. See, do you know what is the engine for good time management? The engine for good time management isn't cutting weight. It's not planning ahead. It's not even how well you take care of yourself. The engine, the power behind good time management is faith. It's believing that today matters, that I'm not going to waste today. That, at the end of the day, is the power behind an effective time manager, is that when you're tired, when you're lacking sleep, you still have this drive to say, I'm not going to waste this day. Today matters. 2 Corinthians 12:9 is a promise we go back to often. It's a promise that I say to myself often. And so let's say it together one more time. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says this. It says, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Stop right there. See, when you say, I just don't have enough time to do everything I need to do in a day, you want to consider what you're really saying. Jesus' promise is my grace is sufficient for you. And that's not just a promise for generally, it's a promise for today. God's grace is sufficient for you every day. And so I don't believe that God intended for you to live a life where you are always constantly feeling like you don't have enough time for everything that you need to do in the day. And instead of complaining, I don't have enough time for everything I need to do today, maybe it's time to look again at God's promise. My grace is sufficient for you. And ask yourself, am I trying to do too much today? Am I trying to go beyond God's grace for me today? It reminds me of when, Moses, he was leading the Israelites through the wilderness to the promised land. And to feed his people, God would send manna from heaven to the people on the ground. And he would tell the people, Moses would tell the people, hey, go and gather as much as you need for today. But don't bother gathering for tomorrow or the next day, that kind of thing. And some of the people didn't obey that. Some people didn't listen. So they gathered what they could for today, but they went beyond God's daily grace. And they went and, I need this for tomorrow. I'll need this for tomorrow. They started panicking, worrying a little bit. They started kind of gathering other stuff. And what happened? They had enough for their day, but the stuff that they collected for the next day and the next day and the next day, it all rotted away and it stank their homes. Let me ask this question. Is there a stink in your life? A lack of peace in your life? Because you're going beyond God's grace for you each day. I'm not saying don't plan ahead. We just talked about how important planning is. But I'm talking about, are you going beyond God's grace for you that day? See, if you would go into every day with this belief that today matters and God's grace is sufficient for me, I think you're going to find over time that God's grace really is sufficient for you and that you are more effective relying not just on your own strength, but relying on the grace of God, His wisdom and power in your life, and you're even more effective that way. Earlier today, we talked about entrusting others with stuff that maybe we don't want to do ourselves. And we talked about it in the form of delegating to others, empowering others. The most important person that you can entrust your stuff to, his name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. And it's this, is that if there's something that is beyond you, if there is an issue that you don't have a solution for, if there's something that has been weighing on you that's out of your control, then you want to entrust that to Jesus. You want to give that weight to God. You want to give God the permission to work that out in His time. Psalm 31 verse 14 says it this way. Read it with me. It says, but I trust in you, O Lord. I say, you are my God. My times are in your hands. See, when you come to the things that are beyond your control and say, God, I entrust you with that. I'll do the best I can with what I've got and what's in my hand and what's in my control. But the stuff that I can't control, I trust you with that. And you say, God, my times are in your hands. I think you're going to find over time, just as Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, God makes everything beautiful in its time. He makes everything beautiful in its time. So entrust it to him. Because God is never late. He's always on time. He's God on time. Would you give God some praise in this place together?